Mortal Kombat has killed its own protagonists more times than any fighting game franchise in history. But after 30 years of timeline resets, retcons, and resurrections, figuring out which deaths actually count is nearly impossible. Some characters died and stayed dead. Others died, came back, then died again in completely different ways. And a few deaths were so important they literally rewrote reality itself. That's why today, in breaking down every single canonical death in Mortal Kombat and explaining which ones actually mattered, starting with the death that created the entire tournament system. The Great Kung Lao didn't just die. He lost the one fight that doomed Earthrealm for 500 years. And if you think that's tragic, wait until you hear how his mercy became the franchise's biggest mistake. The Great Kung Lao was Earthrealm's champion roughly 5 centuries before the first Mortal Kombat game. He was a Shaolin warrior from the Order of Light, ancestor to both present-day Kung Lao and Liu Kang. The guy was so skilled he defeated Shang Tsung in Mortal Kombat and won the entire tournament for Earthrealm. He became Grand Champion. He saved his realm, and then he made one fatal decision. He spared Shang Tsung's life. 50 years later, Shang Tsung returned, but this time he brought Goro, the 4-armed prince of the Shokan, as his new champion. The Great Kung Lao faced Goro in single combat at the tournament grounds, likely on Shang Tsung's island. The fight ended with Goro ripping out the Great Kung Lao's heart. Then, Shang Tsung consumed his soul. But here's what makes this death so devastating. Goro didn't just kill one man. He remained undefeated for 9 consecutive Mortal Kombat tournaments. 9 tournaments over 500 years. That's half a millennium of outworld dominance. Half a millennium of Earthrealm living under the constant threat of invasion. All because one warrior showed mercy to the wrong sorcerer. The Great Kung Lao's soul wasn't even freed until EMK. Deception? When Raiden's self-destruction blast finally killed Shang Tsung during the Dragon King crisis. Centuries trapped inside the body of his own killer's master. The man who saved Earthrealm spent 500 years as a prisoner inside the sorcerer he refused to execute. Here's what breaks the established lore. This death created the entire premise of Mortal Kombat. Every game, every storyline, every desperate struggle for Earthrealm's survival traces back to this single moment. Without the Great Kung Lao's death, there's no 500-year losing streak. Without the losing streak, there's no urgent need for Liu Kang to break Goro's reign in 1992. The franchise literally doesn't exist without this canonical death, and NetherRealm knows it matters. The Great Kung Lao's death has never been retconned, not once. It remains canonical across all 3 timelines. The original timeline from MK1 through Armageddon references it constantly. The new timeline created by MK9 keeps it intact as historical fact. Even MK12023, Liu Kang's carefully crafted new era, acknowledges the Great Kung Lao's defeat as foundational history. When you have a lore point that survives 3 complete timeline resets, you know it's load-bearing. This single death established that Mortal Kombat isn't about winning. It's about the consequences of losing. The Great Kung Lao was the greatest fighter of his generation, and his death proved that even champions fail. That lesson echoes through every game that followed. But if one warrior's death shaped 5 centuries of history, wait until you learn about the massacre that created the franchise's most iconic character. Hanzo Hasashi died twice on the same day, and neither death was committed by the person Scorpion spent decades trying to kill. Hanzo Hasashi was a Shirai Ryu ninja, a husband, and a father. His death is the most retconned event in Mortal Kombat history, rewritten so many times across 3 decades that figuring out what actually happened requires examining 4 different games. But here's what we know for certain. Hanzo died during a mission to a Shaolin temple. His killer was Bi-Han, the original Sub-Zero from the Lin Kuei clan. The method of death was Sub-Zero's signature spine rip fatality. That part has never changed. What changed is everything else. The original Mortal Kombat in 1992 stated that Scorpion and his entire clan were exterminated by Sub-Zero and the Lin Kuei. Simple revenge story. Ninja kills ninja. But then, Mortal Kombat mythologies. Sub-Zero dropped in 1997 and revealed the truth was way more complicated. Quan Chi, the NetherRealm sorcerer, had hired both the Lin Kuei and the Shirai Ryu to retrieve a map leading to Shinnok's amulet. Bi-Han and Hanzo both showed up at the same temple for for the same artifact. They fought. Bi-Han won. That fight was fair, but while Hanzo was dying at the temple, something else was happening back in Japan. Quan Chi personally traveled to the Shirai-ryu compound and slaughtered everyone. Hanzo's wife, Harumi, his son, Satoshi, every single member of the Shirai-ryu clan, genocided, and then Quan Chi made it look like Sub-Zero and the Lin Kuei did it. Here's where it gets even darker. Quan Chi found Hanzo's soul wandering the Netherrealm and showed him fabricated visions, false memories of Bi-Han butchering his family. Hanzo watched a lie, believed it was real, and when Quan Chi offered him resurrection as a hellfire-wielding specter in exchange for serving the Brotherhood of Shadow, Hanzo accepted. Scorpion was born from a manufactured vendetta. The specter transformation is critical here. Scorpion isn't a revenant. Revenants are magically forged bodies controlled by their master, like the enslaved Earthrealm defenders in MK9. Scorpion is a specter, an undead being with supernatural flame powers he never possessed in life. He's semi-autonomous, driven by vengeance, but not fully mind-controlled. And he's completely different from wraiths like Noob Saibot, who gain entirely new shadow powers and lose their humanity entirely. 3 different types of undeath, 3 different rules. Scorpion spent years hunting Bi-Han. He finally killed him in the Netherrealm during the events of the first Mortal Kombat tournament, ripped him apart, returned holding a charred skull and spine, and the entire time he was killing the wrong man for the wrong crime. Bi-Han killed Hanzo in fair combat during a mission. Quan Chi murdered his family and framed Bi-Han for genocide. The truth wasn't revealed until Mortal Kombat 4 in the original timeline. In the new timeline created by MK9, Scorpion didn't learn the truth until Mortal Kombat X Chapter 9, when Sub-Zero's younger brother Kuai Liang showed him evidence from Sector's severed head, proving Quan Chi conspired with the Lin Kuei to massacre the Shirai-ryu. 20 years of manipulation, 2 timelines, 1 lie that created the franchise's most iconic rival. But if Scorpion's death created a specter consumed by false vengeance, wait until you learn about the suicide that built an impenetrable wall around Earthrealm for 10,000 years. Queen Sindel killed herself to save a realm she would never live to see protected. And after 3 decades of retcons, we still don't know if she was a hero or a villain when she died. Sindel was the Queen of Edenia, wife of King Jared and mother of Katana. Roughly 10,000 years before Mortal Kombat 3, Shao Kahn conquered Edenia in a single day, not invaded it, merged it. An entire realm with millions of inhabitants ceased to exist as a separate entity. The souls, the land, the very reality of Edenia became part of Outworld permanently. Shao Kahn murdered King Jared and forced Sindel to become his queen, and then Sindel took her own life. That suicide created a mystical ward over Earthrealm, a magical barrier that physically prevented Shao Kahn from setting foot there. This is why the Mortal Kombat tournament system exists. Shao Kahn couldn't just invade Earthrealm. He had to win 10 consecutive tournaments before the Elder Gods would allow realm merging. Sindel's single act of self-sacrifice established the entire framework that structures the franchise's plot for 10,000 years. But the contradictions are massive. MK3 era lore presents the suicide as genuine grief, a broken queen who couldn't live under Shao Kahn's rule. MK9 reframes it as a deliberate protective act, a strategic sacrifice to create the ward. Then MK11's Aftermath DLC retconned everything and claimed Sindel was always evil, that Quan Chi actually murdered her and staged it as suicide, that she willingly betrayed Jared and wanted to rule beside Shao Kahn all along. The fanbase rejected that retcon so hard that NetherRealm reversed it entirely in MK120-23. Liu Kang's new era restores Sindel as a benevolent empress who rules Outworld with honor and protects her daughters. The evil Sindel retcon lasted exactly 1 game before being erased from canon. Here's what makes this death critical. When Quan Chi resurrected Sindel on Earthrealm soil during MK3, the ward broke. The act of her standing on Earthrealm as a living being dissolved the protection her death created. That moment enabled Shao Kahn's full-scale invasion. The entire MK3 storyline in both the original and new timelines hinges on Sindel's resurrection, undoing her original sacrifice. Her death saved Earthrealm. Her resurrection doomed it. The true nature of Sindel's death depends entirely on which timeline you're examining. Original timeline? Tragic suicide. New timeline? Possibly strategic. MK11? Aftermath? Secretly evil all along. MK12023? None of that happened because Liu Kang rewrote history. One death, 4 different interpretations. 0 consistent answers. But if Sindel's death protected Earthrealm for 10 millennia, wait until you learn about the opening cutscene that killed the franchise's undefeated protagonist before you even pressed start. Liu Kang was Mortal Kombat's undefeated protagonist for 4 consecutive games, and then NetherRealm killed him in the opening cutscene before you even reached the character select screen. Liu Kang was Earthrealm's chosen one, Shaolin Monk, 4-time Mortal Kombat champion, defeated Shang Tsung in MK1, defeated Shao Kahn in MK2, and MK3, defeated Shinnok in MK4. The guy saved the world 4 times in a row without losing a single canonical fight. He was the franchise's hero. And then Mortal Kombat. Deadly Alliance dropped in 2002 and opened with his murder. The scene happens at the Wushu Academy in Earthrealm. Liu Kang is training alone when Shang Tsung approaches disguised as Kung Lao. Liu Kang sees through the illusion immediately and fights back. But then Quan Chi strikes from behind with a green skull projectile. Liu Kang staggers. Shang Tsung closes the distance, snaps his neck, and consumes his soul on the spot. The franchise's hero is dead before the title screen. This was the most shocking death in Mortal Kombat history at the time. Players booted up Deadly Alliance expecting to play as Liu Kang and found him already dead. He was completely unplayable. The character roster didn't even include him except as a selectable fighter in versus mode with no story relevance. NetherRealm killed the protagonist in the cold, open to establish that the Deadly Alliance was a genuine threat, but the death didn't stick cleanly. In MK, Deception, Liu Kang's spirit roamed free while his corpse remained unburied. Then Dark Raiden, the corrupted version of Earthrealm's protector who had gone insane after his failed self-sacrifice against Onaga, reanimated Liu Kang's body using necromancy from the Huan sect. He bound the corpse with enchanted chain hooks and infused it with lightning. Zombie Liu Kang was sent to massacre his own Shaolin monks. At the Battle of Armageddon, Zombie Liu Kang confronted Shang Tsung on the Pyramid of Argus and killed his own murderer with those same hooked chains. Here's what makes this death canonical. Liu Kang stayed dead for 2 full games. Deadly Alliance had no Liu Kang. Deception had Zombie Liu Kang, controlled by Dark Raiden. His death created a power vacuum that allowed Onaga to nearly conquer all the realms. The hero's absence mattered. When MK9 rebooted the timeline, one of the biggest changes was keeping Liu Kang alive longer, showing that NetherRealm understood how devastating his original death was to Earthrealm's chances. The death was eventually undone by the timeline reset, but it remains the canonical end of Liu Kang's story in the original timeline. 4 victories, 1 ambush. The Chosen One fell because he trusted his best friend's face. But if Liu Kang's death created a power vacuum that nearly destroyed Earthrealm, wait until you learn about the battle where literally everyone died at once. Mortal Kombat Armageddon didn't just kill a few characters. It killed everyone. Literally everyone. 62 fighters died in a single battle, and the only survivor was the one who destroyed reality itself. The setup was apocalyptic. The Elder Gods foresaw that the growing number of powerful combatants would tear the fabric of reality apart. Too many warriors with god-tier abilities existing simultaneously would cause the realms to collapse, so they appointed the Edenian god Argus to design a solution. His plan was a contest. His 2 sons, Taven and Dagon, would race to the top of a pyramid and defeat the fire elemental Blaze. The winner would gain godhood and the power to save reality, but every fighter in the Mortal Kombat universe showed up instead. Forces of light versus forces of darkness. The Pyramid of Argus in Edenia became a massacre site. Sub-Zero was stabbed by Baraka. Johnny Cage was decapitated. Sonya was torn in half. Jax was impaled on Hodor's spear. Kung Lao fell to Shinnok's demonic creatures. Dozens more perished in the chaos. This wasn't a tournament. This was extinction-level carnage. And then Shao Kahn reached the summit. He defeated Blaze and absorbed godlike power. He slaughtered the remaining combatants. The last one standing was Raiden, who fought Kahn atop the pyramid but lost. Before Shao Kahn could deliver the killing blow, the crippled Raiden used his shattered amulet to send one final message back through time to his past self. 3 words: he must win. That message created the alternate timeline of Mortal Kombat 9. Raiden receiving the message during the events of the first 3 games is what triggers his visions, his attempts to change the future, and ultimately the creation of the new timeline where he tries to prevent Armageddon from ever happening. Armageddon is the bridge. The original timeline ends with everyone dead and Shao Kahn as a god. The new timeline begins with Raiden trying to rewrite that ending. Here's what makes this death canonical. Armageddon is the only event in Mortal Kombat where every character in the franchise died simultaneously. Not most of them, not the main cast, every single one. And it's never been retconned. The original timeline definitively ends with this battle. MK9 doesn't erase it. MK9 creates a branching timeline where Raiden tries to change the outcome, but the original timeline still happened. Armageddon remains the canonical end of that continuity. NetherRealm confirmed this by making Armageddon the inciting incident for every game that followed. Without Armageddon, there's no desperate message. Without the message, there's no MK9. Without MK9, there's no new timeline, no MK10, no MK11, no Fire God Liu Kang reshaping reality. The death of everyone in the original timeline is the single most important plot point in the entire franchise. But if 62 fighters dying at once sounds catastrophic, wait until you learn about the death that happened because a god tried to save someone and accidentally killed them instead. Bi-Han died because Raiden failed to change the future, and his death created one of the franchise's most tragic villains. Bi-Han was the original Sub-Zero, Lin Kuei assassin, the man who genuinely killed Hanzo Hasashi in fair combat during their mission to retrieve Shinnok's amulet. And when the timeline reset in MK9, Raiden saw visions of the future showing exactly how Bi-Han would die. Raiden tried to prevent it. He failed. The death happens in MK9 Chapter 3 during Scorpion's chapter. The location is the Netherrealm. Scorpion literally drags Bi-Han there from Shang Tsung's island after Quan Chi shows him fabricated visions of Sub-Zero murdering his wife and child. Present-day Scorpion confronts Bi-Han in the hellish landscape, and Bi-Han's last words are desperate. "That is not me." He's pleading innocence about the clan massacre. Scorpion removes his mask, revealing the flaming skull underneath, and kills him. He returns to the tournament throne room holding a charred skull and spine. Raiden had literally offered Scorpion a deal moments before. Spare Bi-Han and Raiden would petition the Elder Gods to resurrect the entire Shirai Ryu clan. Scorpion refused. Quan Chi's manipulation was too effective. Bi-Han died because a god couldn't convince a specter to see past manufactured revenge. But death wasn't the end for Bi-Han. He returned as Noob Saibot, a shadow wraith serving the Brotherhood of Shadow. Not a revenant, not a specter, a wraith. Completely different form of undeath with entirely new shadow powers that Bi-Han never possessed as the living Sub-Zero. Noob Saibot has 0 ice abilities. He manipulates darkness, creates shadow clones, and serves the Netherrealm with cold efficiency. The man is gone. Only the weapon remains. In MK9, Chapter 16, Nightwolf kicked Noob Saibot into Quan Chi's Solnado during the Earthrealm massacre. The swirling vortex of tortured souls seemingly destroyed or scattered him. His fate after that remains ambiguous through MK11. He exists in MK11, but his canonical status is unclear. Here's what makes this death critical. Bi-Han's death directly caused his younger brother Kuai Liang to take the Sub-Zero mantle and avenge him. Kuai Liang becomes one of the franchise's central heroes, specifically because Bi-Han died. The second Sub-Zero exists because Scorpion killed the first one, and Kuai Liang's entire character arc through MKX and MK11 is defined by trying to redeem his brother's legacy, while Noob Saibot remains a corrupted shadow of what Bi-Han once was. But if Bi-Han died because Raiden failed to change one death, wait until you learn about the death Raiden successfully prevented and the catastrophic price Earthrealm paid for that victory. Kung Lao defeated 3 champions in a row, and then Shao Kahn walked up behind him and snapped his neck while he was celebrating. This happens in MK9 Chapter 11 at the end of the second Outworld tournament. The location is Shao Kahn's Coliseum. Raiden had chosen Kung Lao as Earthrealm's champion instead of Liu Kang, desperately trying to alter the future he'd seen in his visions. And Kung Lao Lao delivered brilliantly. He defeated Shang Tsung, then Quan Chi, then Kintaro, the four-armed Shokan warrior, in back-to-back-to-back fights without losing once. After defeating Kintaro, Kung Lao was celebrating. He turned to the booing Outworld crowd and bowed mockingly, taunting them. He declared, "Earthrealm is free." And then Shao Kahn walked up behind him and snapped his neck without warning. No dramatic speech, no challenge, just execution. Kung Lao died instantly. The aftermath is one of the most emotionally raw scenes in the franchise. Liu Kang tackled Shao Kahn, screaming. When Kahn taunted him with "Witless boy, do you know who I am?" Liu Kang responded with pure rage. "The murderer of my friend." He then defeated Shao Kahn in single combat, shouting, "For Kung Lao, the Shaolin, and Earthrealm with every strike." But Raiden's amulet kept cracking. The future remained unchanged. Raiden's attempt to save everyone by choosing a different champion had failed. Kung Lao's soul was claimed by Quan Chi and transformed into a revenant. He spent the next 25 years as an undead servant of the Netherrealm, serving alongside Revenant Liu Kang through MKX and MK11. His restoration to life never happened. The timeline reset in MK11 was the only thing that freed him. Here's what makes this death devastating. Kung Lao earned his victory. 3 champions defeated, Earthrealm saved, and Shao Kahn killed him anyway because he could. Not in fair combat, not in a tournament match, just murder. The death proved that Shao Kahn doesn't respect the rules when no one's watching, and it proved that Raiden's visions couldn't account for cowardice. But if Kung Lao died because Shao Kahn refused to fight fair, wait until you learn about the sorcerer who had his own souls ripped out to create the ultimate killing machine. Shang Tsung spent centuries consuming souls, and then Shao Kahn ripped every single one out of him to create the ultimate weapon. This happens in MK9 between chapters 15 and 16. The location is Shao Kahn's throne room in Outworld. Quan Chi had just resurrected Sindel on Earthrealm soil, breaking the ward that protected the realm from invasion. But Shao Kahn needed more than an invasion. He needed a guarantee. So he summoned Shang Tsung and forcibly extracted every soul the sorcerer had consumed over his 1,000-year lifespan. The method was brutal. Shao Kahn grabbed Shang Tsung and physically ripped the souls from his body. Hundreds, possibly thousands of tortured spirits that Shang Tsung had stolen and imprisoned inside himself for centuries. All of them transferred directly into Sindel. The process killed Shang Tsung instantly. His body collapsed as an empty husk. The irony is perfect. The franchise's most famous soul stealer had his own soul stolen. The man who built his immortality and power by devouring others was devoured himself. And unlike his countless victims, Shang Tsung didn't get trapped inside someone for eternity. He just ceased to exist in that timeline. Sindel, now empowered by Shang Tsung's absorbed essence, became an unstoppable killing machine. She single-handedly massacred 8 Earthrealm defenders in the cathedral during Chapter 16. The sacrifice wasn't just murder, it was strategic engineering. Shao Kahn weaponized his own sorcerer to create the perfect assassin. Here's what makes this death significant. Shang Tsung was not made a revenant after. His soul was absorbed into Sindel. When Nightwolf killed Sindel with his self-sacrificial spell, it's unclear what happened to the soul she carried. Did Shang Tsung's essence die with her? Was it released? The game never clarifies. Shang Tsung simply stops existing in MK9's timeline after this sacrifice. He only returned in MK11 as a past version brought forward by Chronicus time manipulation. The present-day Shang Tsung from MK9's timeline remained dead, and in MK11's Aftermath DLC, that past version of Shang Tsung temporarily absorbed Chronicus' power before Fire God Liu Kang defeated him, creating yet another death for the sorcerer across multiple timelines. But if Shang Tsung died to empower one killer, wait until you learn about the massacre where that empowered killer murdered 8 heroes in under 5 minutes. Sindel killed 8 heroes in one scene, and every single soul became a slave of the Netherrealm. This happens in MK9 Chapter 16, Nightwolf's chapter. The location is the cathedral in Earthrealm during Shao Kahn's invasion. While Raiden and Liu Kang were away consulting the Elder Gods, Sindel attacked the remaining defenders. The empowerment from Shang Tsung's absorbed souls made her unstoppable. The kill order was systematic. Cabal died first. Heel stomped through his heart. Stryker was punched through the face. Cyber Sub-Zero had his cybernetics destroyed via uppercut, causing fatal electrical surges. Jax took a healed boot to the throat. Smoke had his neck snapped. Jade had her heart ripped out. Kitana, Sindel's own daughter, had her life force drained while begging her mother to stop. She survived long enough to speak to Liu Kang before dying in his arms. Only Nightwolf stopped the massacre. He performed a self-sacrificial spell that killed both himself and Sindel simultaneously. The explosion of spiritual energy ended the slaughter, but the damage was done. Johnny Cage and Sonya Blade survived, but were too injured to continue fighting. Every fallen warrior soul was immediately claimed by Quan Chi. All 8 were transformed into revenants. Gray skin, glowing eyes, corrupted personalities. They became undead servants of the Netherrealm, serving Quan Chi through MKX and eventually becoming autonomous rulers of the realm after his death. This single scene killed more named characters than any other moment in Mortal Kombat history. 8 heroes dead in 5 minutes of screen time. The massacre created the Revenant crisis that dominated 2 entire games. And it happened because Raiden chose the wrong moment to leave his warriors undefended. But if Sindel's massacre enslaved 8 souls to the Netherrealm, wait until you learn about the death where Raiden accidentally killed the one person he spent the entire game trying to save. Raiden spent the entire game trying to save Liu Kang. And in the final chapter, he accidentally killed him. This happens in MK9. Chapter 17, Raiden's chapter, the finale. The location is near Shao Kahn's portal during the Earthrealm invasion. Raiden had just returned from the Netherrealm, where he discovered Quan Chi already possessed all their fallen allies' souls. He finally decoded the cryptic message from the future. He must win referred to Shao Kahn, not Liu Kang. They needed to let Kahn invade Earthrealm illegally, so the Elder Gods would intervene and destroy him for breaking the ancient rules. Liu Kang was furious. He blamed Raiden for every death, for Kung Lao, for the 8 warriors massacred at the cathedral, for trusting visions he called delusions of an addled mind. When Liu Kang charged forward to fight Shao Kahn directly, Raiden tried to physically stop him. They struggled, and in that struggle, Raiden's lightning accidentally surged through Liu Kang's body, engulfing him in flames and electricity. Liu Kang's dying words were an accusation. "You have killed us all." He died believing Raiden's madness had doomed Earthrealm. He died not knowing the plan would work. This is the emotional climax of MK9's tragedy. The god who spent 17 chapters desperately trying to alter the future and save everyone personally killed his most trusted warrior, the Chosen One, Earthrealm's champion, the one person Raiden needed most. Dead by his own hand, Liu Kang's soul was claimed by Quan Chi and transformed into a Revenant. Revenant Liu Kang's resentment toward Raiden persisted through MKX and MK11. He eventually became co-ruler of the Netherrealm alongside Revenant Kitana, commanding the undead army. The hero became a tyrant because the god he trusted failed him. But if Raiden accidentally killing Liu Kang was the emotional low point, wait until you learn about the death that finally let the Elder Gods intervene and end Shao Kahn's reign. Shao Kahn conquered realms for 10,000 years, and the moment he broke the rules, the Elder Gods erased him. This happens in MK9, Chapter 17, the finale. Shao Kahn invaded Earthrealm without winning Mortal Kombat. The Elder Gods intervened immediately, channeling divine energy through Raiden. Empowered Raiden defeated and killed Shao Kahn. Upon his death, Raiden's shattered amulet was fully restored, confirming this was the correct outcome all along. This death stuck. Unlike the original timeline where Shao Kahn survived through decoys and resurrection, MK9's version was definitive. He only returned in MK11 as a past version brought forward by Kronika. The present-day Shao Kahn remained dead. The cost was devastating. Earthrealm was saved, but virtually every defender was dead or enslaved as a revenant. Raiden's plan worked, but the price was almost everything. But if Shao Kahn's death ended MK9's timeline, wait until you learn about the decapitation that freed Shinnok and trapped the revenants forever. Quan Chi orchestrated massacres, enslaved souls, and manipulated timelines for centuries, and Hanzo Hasashi cut his head off. This happens in MKX Chapter 9, Scorpion's chapter. Sub-Zero showed Hanzo evidence from Sector's severed head, proving Quan Chi conspired conspired with the Lin Kuei to slaughter the Shirai Ryu, not Bihan. Consumed with rage, Hanzo stormed the Special Forces refugee camp where Quan Chi was imprisoned. He defeated Sanya, Johnny Cage, and Kenshi to reach him. When Quan Chi addressed him as Scorpion, Hanzo slapped him and declared, "I am no longer Scorpion. My name is Hanzo Hasashi." He threw his kunai through Quan Chi's chest, pulled him close, then beheaded him with his blade. The timing was catastrophic. Moments before decapitation, Quan Chi completed an incantation freeing Shinnok from the amulet. Hanzo's vengeance unleashed MKX's main villain. Worse, because Quan Chi died before reversing his necromancy, the remaining revenants were permanently trapped as undead. Liu Kang, Kitana, Kung Lao, Jade, Smoke, Cabal, Striker, Nightwolf, and Sindel were never restored. This death was permanent. Quan Chi never returned except as a time-displaced version in MK11. But if Quan Chi's death trapped souls forever, wait until you learn about Devora's kill that ended Scorpion's redemption arc. Melina led a rebellion against Kotal Khan, and Devora killed her with the most gruesome execution in the franchise. This happens in MKX Chapter 6, Devora's chapter. The location is Outworld, before Kotal Khan's throne. Melina had been leading a Tarkatan uprising using Shinnok's amulet as a weapon despite the pain it caused her. After Devora captured her and recovered the amulet, Kotal Khan authorized execution. The method was the kiss of death. Devora kissed Melina and fed countless parasitic insects into her mouth. The insects devoured her face and flesh from the inside out. Melina screamed and writhed as the bugs consumed her, while Kotal Khan watched impassively. She remained dead through MK11, appearing only as a past version brought forward by Kronika's time manipulation. In MK12023, she was completely reimagined as an Outworld princess with Target disease rather than a clone, discarding her violent execution entirely. This death established Devora as the franchise's most prolific killer of named characters, a reputation she would solidify by murdering Baraka in a flashback and later killing Hanzo Hasashi in MK11. But if Devora executed Melina on Kotal Khan's orders, wait until you learn about the murder that freed Shinnok and doomed the remaining revenants forever. Hasashi redeemed himself, rebuilt the Shirai Ryu, and made peace with Sub-Zero, and then Devora stabbed him in the back. This happens in MK11, Chapter 9. Present-day Hanzo and Sub-Zero were searching the Netherrealm for the ferryman Korin when they encountered past Scorpion, a revenant brought forward by Kronika's time manipulation. Present Hanzo defeated his younger self and was explaining why Kronika couldn't be trusted when Devora ambushed from behind, stabbing him with venomous ovipositors. The dying Hanzo's final words to his past self, "The Shirai Ryu are defined by their heart, not blood," convinced past Scorpion to defect from Kronika and join the heroes. Hanzo died in his younger self's arms, completing his redemption arc through sacrifice. This death gave Devora 3 named character kills: Baraka, Melina, and Hanzo Hasashi, more than any non-boss villain in franchise history. But if Hanzo's death redeemed him, wait until you learn about the Titan whose destruction reset everything. Kronika was the keeper of time. She controlled every timeline, manipulated every era, and orchestrated countless resets. And fire god Liu Kang burned her to crystal and shattered her. This happens in MK11, Chapter 12. Before the final battle, Kronika's daughter Cetrion willingly sacrificed herself, dissolving into pure energy that merged with her mother. Despite this power boost, fire god Liu Kang prevailed. Liu Kang was created when Raiden merged his divine essence with both young Liu Kang and revenant Liu Kang. The Union Kronika spent countless timelines preventing by keeping them divided. In the canonical Aftermath ending, Shang Tsung first absorbed Kronika's power, but was then defeated by fire god Liu Kang. Liu Kang used Kronika's hourglass and crown to reshape history, visiting the great Kung Lao at the dawn of a new timeline and creating the universe shown in MK12023. Kronika's death ended the cycle of timeline resets and gave control of reality to a mortal-turned-god who understood loss, sacrifice, and the cost of trying to create a perfect world. But if Kronika's death closed one chapter, wait until you learn how MK12023 made almost every death on this list completely irrelevant. Fire. God Liu Kang spent eons crafting a timeline where the catastrophic deaths of previous eras never happened, and MK1 2023 proves that canonical death in Mortal Kombat is now entirely optional. Almost no major characters die permanently in MK1 story mode. This is deliberate contrast to MK9's carnage. Sindel falls during the Battle of Armageddon against Titan variants. Titan Shang Tsung is erased from existence. But the primary timeline versions of Shang Tsung, Quan Chi, and General Shao are imprisoned, not killed. Characters who died repeatedly across previous timelines survive entirely. Baraka, Mileena, Kung Lao, Johnny Cage all live through the story. The Chaos Reigns DLC transforms Bihan into Noob Saibot through Titan Havoc's torture rather than Scorpion's vengeance, reinventing even this foundational death. The multiverse concept means all three timelines coexist. Deaths in one timeline are canonical within that reality, but irrelevant to others. Every version of every character exists somewhere, even if some versions are definitively dead. Here's what this means for the franchise. Death creates better villains than it eliminates. Bihan becomes Noob Saibot. Hanzo becomes Scorpion. Liu Kang becomes a revenant tyrant. The most memorable antagonists are products of death, not perpetrators. No death is truly permanent in MKS cosmology. But the emotional weight persists across every retcon and reset. Liu Kang's dying accusation haunts Raiden even after timeline rewrites. The great Kung Lao's defeat motivates his descendant half a millennium later. Death in Mortal Kombat isn't an ending. It's the inciting incident for whatever comes next.